The product's built for if you give people transparency and you give them choice around how they pay their rent, you make it all visible. It's not a problem anymore. Like, you can say to a renter, I want to let you know that with Ailo, I can see when you've paid the rent. Obviously, you can see when you've paid the rent, and the investor can see when you've paid the rent. So I can't cover for you anymore. Again, shifting all of that responsibility away from our shoulders, right back onto the tenant where it should be.
Welcome to the Property Management Podcast. Now, if you are one of the property owners or property managers struggling with chaos because your systems and procedures just aren't working for you, know that you are not alone, my friend. Every coaching client I have recently worked with has said exactly the same thing. Kylie, we're in chaos. I am so stressed. Nothing is working properly. And largely this has to do with a lack of time. There doesn't seem to be time or spare time for anyone to fix things that aren't working or that are broken. And there's also been a lot of legislation changes. And if you aren't on top of them, chances are the foundations in your business are really starting to crumble. And I know that sounds dire, but I want to let you know that there is help at hand, and it's in the form of my monthly membership called PM Accelerate. All for the small monthly cost, you get a huge amount of admin support, including done for you processes and procedures, workflows and checklists. You also get training support for property management growth and large property management issues like conflict and dispute resolution. There's also personal development support and a done-for-you service, which includes blog writing, newsletters, and social media posts as well. So if you'd like to find out more about that Property Mums membership experience, PM Accelerate, head to the link in the show notes. Now, let's move on to today's epic episode. And I was quite blown away with my guest today and their property management solution, Ailo. I first heard about Ailo through two of my amazing clients on the Gold Coast, Mel and Shannon, shout out to them, who run Hype Realty. They introduced me to the solution they were using to run their fast growing business. Now, I initially thought, oh yeah, yep, just another property management software. But after a demo with the Ailo team and my conversation today with Juliette Hughes, who is their head of property management and market development, I'm very pleasantly surprised. Ailo is a groundbreaking business operating system for property managers that handles payments, solves communication, helps coordinate your work, and provides a better experience for everyone involved. And if you're thinking, yeah, right, I've heard all that before, then listen up. Would you like your rent arrears at 1% or less without actually having to do anything? Would you like your workflows done for you and automated so that you know exactly where you are up to with any given task, so that your communication is seamless and you never have to have that middle of the night, wake up, scare, thinking, oh crap, I forgot to send an email to that owner. And you won't need to be operating a trust account, so there'll be no more weekly, mid or end of month manual disbursements. And here's another kicker. What would it be like for your landlords to take control of paying their own bills? Well, it's all possible in Ailo and so much more. So if you want to find out what the future of managing your properties could look like, then take a listen. Thank you so much for joining me on the Property Management Podcast, Juliette. Now, before we dive in, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the industry?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I have been in property management, I think, going on 24 years. And I started, like most of us, on the front desk in a little agency while I was doing my diploma in real estate. It seems like a lifetime ago. You know, back when I started, we didn't even take photos in inspections. We were cutting out the ads in the newspaper and charging each week, and you had no idea what properties rented for unless you knew. There was no such thing as online databases like RP Data and Price Finder. It was a very different time. And, you know, the industry's come a long way, not nearly far enough, I think. But through my career, I've worked for small agencies, big agencies, worked for myself, contracted for other agencies, right up until I came on board with Ailo almost 2 years ago now.
Fantastic. And tell me a little bit about Ailo's story. How did it start and who is behind Ailo?
So Ailo started in 2017, and our two co-founders and CEOs, Ashley Renner, who came from a payments background, he's been through several really successful companies around the payments flow and banking, was part of actually the setup of Deft from Macquarie Bank originally. So really strong banking background. And Ben White, obviously part of the Ray White family, and his entire career really has been devoted to property management and how to support agents do a better job, grow profitable rent rolls, support teams. So the two of them together have been working tirelessly to create something better for all the people involved in the world of property management. And really it started with a surveying function called Ailo Insights. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, where, it's quite incredible what they did, surveying investors all around Australia, hundreds and thousands of them, trying to establish what property managers were doing well, where they needed to improve. They also had a whole range of algorithms around identifying risk in a portfolio, flagging this person may have spent a lot of money or had long vacancies, had a low score on the surveying, and sort of putting that together in a platform that allowed business owners to see what was going on in their business, property managers to get feedback on the service they were delivering, and also had business development tools in there and a few things. But essentially what they figured out was we can't solve the industry's problems by just another slap-on product. Doesn't work. We're losing property managers in the industry daily. It's harder and harder to get the right team together. The culture's suffering. I mean, COVID in itself, we lost a huge amount of talent in our industry. And really they came to the conclusion that to get this right, for people to have strong businesses and people to have established careers and not burn out, we needed to create something from the ground up, which they've done.
That's amazing.
Sorry? Blood, sweat and tears.
Yes. Like a lot of startup businesses, it is a lot of blood, sweat and tears. And I've had a demo and it is an amazing product. So talk to me about some of the biggest problems that you are currently solving in the industry.
Oh my God, how much time have you got, Kylie? I think, when I talk about other softwares being slapped on around this traditional method where the trust account sits in the middle and then all the other work is kind of tacked on, what that does is push property managers kind of into a corner and say, you now have to make a compromise. It's your sanity, it's your time, it's the customer service, it's the communication. Because the way we work, we've got all these sort of workarounds to fix the problems. And when you take money flow and you use, technology that's in every other industry, just not until now, not in property management, and you apply that to the way we work, you start to change the way property managers look and feel about their career and how they work day to day. So a really good example of that would be, if I get in the morning as a property manager and I open my inbox, I'm stuck in there probably till 11 a.m. unless I'm really disciplined. Whereas property managers in Ailo get in and they open what we call projects, which is all of their workflow with all the communication integrated into it, all the information about money in real time. So I don't know, if they've got a tenant that's in arrears and they ring up that tenant and the tenant says, I paid it yesterday, they can say, no, you didn't. I can see the minute you press pay and you didn't pay yesterday. Why don't you open the app on your phone and make that payment? So it puts them back in that position of power. Like if I think back to when I started, I knew if a tenant paid rent because they came in and they paid it. Like it was that
Absolutely.
simple, right? So it puts PMs back in that position of power. And from that elevation, it's like a domino effect. It changes everything we do. It's quite phenomenal. Like arrears for Ailo agents aren't even a thing anymore because of that exact shift in power. They're not doing it. So agents that were at 17 or 18% arrears are at less than 1%. Now, we all know, you apply the effort and the energy, you'll get your arrears down. But these guys aren't doing anything. They're not on the phone. They're not sending emails. They're not following it up. It's just not a thing anymore because, the product's built for if you give people transparency and you give them choice around how they pay their rent, you make it all visible. It's not a problem anymore. Like you can say to a renter, I want to let you know that with Ailo, I can see when you've paid the rent. Obviously, you can see when you've paid the rent and the investor can see when you've paid the rent. So I can't cover for you anymore. Again, shifting all of that responsibility away from our shoulders, right back onto the tenant where it should be. Like I don't know, I feel like I woke up after 20 years and we're all the guardian of everyone else's bad behavior. And it really changes that.
Okay, tell me, would you like to make maintenance your superpower? Well, you can. And you don't even need to tell anyone. It's all thanks to Tappy, a powerful property care software that takes all the pain, stress, and chaos out of dealing with maintenance and turns it into a predictable process that is reliable and frictionless, where every maintenance process is a smooth experience for everyone, with value adds that your owners and tenants will absolutely love. And it seamlessly integrates with your property management software too. And here's the bonus, it can actually help grow your business as well. And if you're rolling your eyes at me right now and thinking, yeah, right, I've heard all this before, then do yourself a favor and book in for a demo at tappy.com.au. Mention that property mum and receive 1 month free on Tappy. That is fantastic. 1% arrears. I'm sure everybody's ears are pricking up listening to that right now, because it is still a challenging, even with all the advances and all the technology, arrears is still a challenging issue. And it's an awkward and uncomfortable conversation we all have to have around money. None of us like having money conversations. And also, if you're an empathetic person as well, it's really hard. A family's struggling and they've lost their jobs. You're stuck in the middle there because the landlord needs the money for their mortgage, but the tenant's going through a really terrible life situation. So it puts property managers in really difficult situations. I think that's an amazing solution right there. If there was nothing else that Ailo offered, that would be amazing. But let's dive into a few more of the benefits of using Ailo or some of the solutions that you offer in your product.
Literally everything a property manager does, whether they're end-to-end, portfolio manager, BDM, leasing, literally every person in an agency has a lift in their day-to-day work life and what they can actually present client-facing. So even in leasing, paying a holding deposit or an initial payment, depending on what state you're in, the minute they pay it, you see it. So there's no delay. Do we open it? Do we not? What are we doing? Do we tell the investor? That gets tidied up. BDMs are having unbelievable success in gaining new managements at warp speed. Even people that are scheduled to go live, say in 3 weeks. I spoke to someone the other day, they had 4 new managements they onboarded the week before just by talking about what Ailo is going to give their investors. They can get their rent faster, they can pay their bills however they want. It's all in their statement. I find, talking to people that are using this product is like the most fulfilling part of my job, because they're getting wins that we knew would happen when you build a product like this, but to hear it happening before they've even onboarded is incredible. Some agencies, this race to the bottom with the fees, or so-and-so will do it for 4%. Why don't you do that? Not only are they not getting engaged in dropping their fees, some of them are actually increasing their fees. Just saying, well, I'm the only one on the market that's offering you this and it's pretty valuable, so we're an extra percent or whatever it is, higher letting fees, whatever it is. There's people posting on social media about securing tenants faster at higher rents because Ailo makes it easier. I mean, honestly, I could talk for hours about the benefits. I think probably the key one is when you take trust accounting out of the center of what we do as property managers and you put communication in the middle of it, it's really what it should be, right? Because it's about relationships. That's really what we're here for. And like you said, no one enjoys making arrears calls. We're not equipped, to be honest. Like, what are we? We're project managers, we're counsellors, we're accountants, all the things that you just sort of throw it into. But when you take away the money side and it's automated in a sensible way, not a ridiculous way, and it's taken care of itself and people have choice and transparency and visibility and they can manage their money in a sensible way, and you put communication in the middle, what happens is you actually add significantly more value. So not because you didn't want to add the value before, but you just didn't have the bandwidth. Like there's only so many hours in a day. So that now when something does go wrong, they can jump straight into it and solve a problem without having to worry about the nuanced details around, whether they're receipting or who's going to pay the bill or we don't have the funds. So they can actually act in the best interest of everyone involved and everyone gets a lift. Like even the tradespeople, the suppliers are getting paid faster than ever. They get paid every day as the money's there, as the bill falls due, whether there's rent coming in or not. An investor can jump in and pay a bill with a credit card, debit card, direct debit. So even they're having a lift. You don't have to worry about, we kind of protect our tradespeople in terms of getting work done and making sure they get paid. A lot of that gets solved too.
Sounds like everyone's going to end up happier. And just thinking as you're talking there, what's resonating with me is that it's all about working smarter, not harder. And I'm assuming that's probably part of the philosophy behind it, which is what we all want. So that's an amazing solution. Now, I struggle, though, to understand the trust accounting side of it. And lots of people I know will be thinking, is it legal? Like, don't we have to have a trust account? Can you talk me through what the requirements are with trust accounting and how the actual payment gateway works?
Yeah,
like in a practical sense?
Yeah, it's such a good point because we've all heard about trustless agencies for so long. There's a couple of things that I should point out. Ailo actually offers both. So when you kind of zoom right out and look at the whole country, not everybody is having their bond lodgements paid directly to the bond authority. So New South Wales and Queensland can, and that's great. So there's no reason to take a bond lodgement. For other states, they still need the trust account to manage those incoming funds and then lodging them, obviously. But we've recognised that you might have some renters that are particularly sticky to the trust account. So when you change a payment method, it's about 80% of the tenants will follow your lead. Yep, you've asked me to make a change. I'll do that. There's a whole range of options. Some attract a fee, some don't. Anyway, I'll do what you ask and I'll change the way I pay my rent. And then that last 20%, 10% generally move across in another 2 weeks. And then you have a handful of people that are quite sticky to the trust account. So we want to make sure you can still take the rent for those renters for the whole life cycle of their tenancy. It's no issue. So we've built an entire trust accounting module inside of Ailo. So you can still receipt the rent, do your bank rec. And then what's really great about it is Ailo will then pull those funds out of your trust account and over into the investor's Ailo wallet. So your investor still gets all the benefits irrespective of how the tenant's paid. So they can get paid the minute it clears. They can pay their bills with credit card, debit card, and so on. But as an agency, you get a significant lift because you're not having to receipt the majority of your payments. It's all coming through Ailo without you doing anything. But you can still handle those sort of edge cases where they're a little bit stickier to the trust account. So there are agents using Ailo today, obviously in the states that don't require to lodge bonds through their trust account, that have no activity in their trust account. It's just sitting there with a zero balance, which is fine. Now, if they go through a 12-month period with no activity, they don't need to have it audited. The agencies that have, trickle through, 5% or whatever the number is of people still paying into the trust, they are still required to get it audited, but it's significantly faster and more cost effective. Most of them are having a minimum charge from their accountant to have it audited, which is good news because that saves us money. What we say is keep the trust account open, sitting there dormant, whether it's a small amount of funds going through it or zero funds, just keep it sitting there. We don't ever want any agency to have to turn away a tenant. If they turn up at your door, desperate to pay the rent so that they're not terminated, we want you to be able to take those funds. There's a whole range of options to make that easy for them, but effectively, we meet the need for any scenario is probably the most important thing to say, but also reducing the costs for an agency. I actually did a huge amount of work around modelling cost-benefit analysis last year for this. And most agencies are paying between 67 cents and 88 cents for every outbound payment from their trust account. So, yeah, it's crazy, right? Water rates, council rates, strata levies, insurance, land tax, all the things that we pay. You pay by BPay, you're paying for that every time. So the bank fees in us operating a trust account are going up and up and up and up and up. And the banks are benefiting, but we're not getting a huge lift, really. Well, we're paying handsomely for it. So you cut out all those expenses with Ailo.
That's fantastic. Now, absolutely, I'm in shock that it's the fees. And, it's something that I didn't even consider, that I was being charged, though the business was being charged those fees. It's just not on my radar. Talk to me, though, about you just mentioned the wallets. How does that part of it work?
So the wallet system inside of Ailo, obviously we have a financial services license. We operate under ASIC. So the requirements are fierce, far more secure and what's the word? Compliant than anything in any trust account system, right? Like it's an important thing to note. But the wallets are actually in the name of the investor. So Ailo's not holding the funds on behalf of, versus a trust account where we hold the funds on behalf of an investor. The funds are the investors. It sits in their wallet and they have choice around how quickly they get paid, but it's their funds. Probably the biggest distinction. And we don't make it difficult for any investor to be a part of Ailo. So an agency can come on board and an investor can never download the app if they want. They can still get paid the minute the rent clears, but they don't have to be forced into that app world if they don't see the value. When that's an investor we call passive, or they can be in the app making changes to how they get paid and how they pay their bills, all the time. They have the freedom to either do nothing or be really active, but the money will still flow however they're used to it being paid.
Are there any objections that you can share with us? If we started using Ailo, for example, and we wanted to have that conversation with our landlords, this is what we're bringing on. What are some of the objections that you are getting and how do we overcome those objections? Because I'm just thinking, I know there would be a lot of my investors that don't like change, and that would be a difficult thing holding me back from moving across to Ailo.
There's two things that I would say. The first one is they don't have to change. They can still get paid how they're getting paid to the same bank account. There is no barrier to that. All you say to them is your statement's going to look a little bit different. I would say a lot easier to understand, and you have more options and you can take up all of them now or in the future. It's up to you. But it's actually not the investors that we have feedback from around this change because they don't have to do anything. It's more the mindset of the property managers, to be really frank with you, because we're creatures of habit. Like that's why we're good at our job. Just do the next right thing and move through the process. Meanwhile, leaning on the legislation, obviously, to guide us. But it's actually the teams that are holding on to this old way of doing things. And the most common question is, and it's really natural, and I understand it, but if I give them choice, they won't pay their bills. Like if I let them take money and not pay the bill, they're not going to pay them. And so it's a shift in mindset of actually saying, well, hang on, let's talk about this. Let's unpack it, because your investors are intelligent people. They own a property, they're paying a mortgage, or they've gone through the process of acquiring that property. They know the bills need to be paid. And this fear is completely natural, but not accurate, because what we've seen is when you give landlords choice and visibility and transparency, they actually pay their bills faster. Because we don't ever get the real story, right? They say, oh, I don't want to do that, or I'll pay it next month. Maybe they just don't have the cash. And if they could pay your handyman or your painter with a credit card, they would, but they don't necessarily want to have that conversation with us because maybe it's none of our business and they're keeping a professional conversation, right? So even though we fear this, it's actually not the case. In fact, not one property manager has reported a bill not being paid. It's the opposite. They're paid faster.
If you are anything like me, you think you know your rent roll numbers. Well, I thought I did until I had a rent roll health check, and I was quite literally shocked. The money I was leaving on the table was astounding. And this is not something that I'm proud to admit. There were missed management fees, let fees, advertising, and lease renewal fees not being charged, and properties even without bonds. And all of this was happening despite monthly audits being conducted in my business. So how did I uncover all these gaps in my valuable income? Well, I had a rent roll due diligence from my good friend Tazi, aka the Rent Roll Queen and founder of the Tazi Way, a specialist in rent roll due diligence, business valuation and management rights. The Tazi Way is the innovative force driving the real estate industry. With 25 years of business and real estate acumen, they find gaps and risks in your agency to find undiscovered value. If you'd like to book your business in for a rent roll due diligence, head to the link in the show notes and mention That Property Mum for a 10% discount. There's been so much talk of stress, overwhelm and burnout in property management lately. Do you want to know how I overcame all of that? Yes, I hit rock bottom multiple times, but I got myself a virtual assistant. Actually, not just one, but 3. But I didn't just get any VA, I got a PMVA. What are they? Well, they are the most well-trained in the business. And not only that, you also have a backup VA, so that essentially your business is never without admin support ever again. And my health, time and business has never looked back. Your PMVA can take care of tasks like rent arrears, lease preparation and renewals, maintenance follow-up, routine inspection bookings, data entry, audits, prospecting, inbox management, and so much more. And the best part of implementing a PMVA in my business was that it freed up my time and my team's time to take care of important things like customer service. What makes me feel so safe is that PMVA is owned by Tiffany Botel, both here and in the Philippines, making my data secure and giving me more control over the VA arrangement. So head to the link in the show notes to book in your discovery call with Lady Boss Tiff. That's amazing. 1% rent arrears, better communication, and bills being paid by the landlords directly faster. That's like tick, tick, tick. Amazing.
I know. And I moderated a panel at a conference last week, and a property manager or head of department who's previously owned businesses, real estate businesses, and is running a department at the moment, she said to me, I've been doing this for over 20 years and I have had a book next to my bed every night. Now that I've had Ailo in the business for 6 months, I don't have the book anymore because I don't wake up in a panic writing things down that I need to follow up. It's like the money side of it's incredible. The arrears is incredible. But the state of mind for our teams and our property managers has significantly shifted because everything that's in their head, like the plates that are spinning, every property manager has them. We do our best to quieten down the noise, but instead of it being in their head, they put it all in projects, which is like our workflow. They don't have to remember everything. They download it out of their head and then it's there for the whole team to see. So we're not relying on our own. We're pretty powerful as property managers, but we're only human.
So what about other features? You can do inspections in there, book all your routines, manage all your day-to-day tasks, data entry, everything. And is it very transparent and clear and easy to use? What's some of that? Break down some of that for me.
Yeah, it's very intuitive to use. Once you're in the system, you're navigating very, very easily. I often say it's like going from the old Nokias to an iPhone where you can actually just navigate around. But it's a one-stop shop in Ailo. You don't have to use 5 different plugins to achieve a high level of customer service or output or effectiveness in property management. So you do all your inspections in Ailo, you schedule them. It'll even send entry notices through forms, depending on what state you're in. So we have an integration with REI. So that's the only additional platform that you're using, and it's completely integrated. So if you're signing leases, you're doing them through Ailo. If someone has signed them, you can see a big green tick through Ailo that they've signed the lease. So you don't have to go outside of Ailo to continue on with your work. But it literally does everything. So it's handling the money for you. It's issuing statements monthly, end of financial year, transfer summaries when people get paid, creditor remittance. It's doing all of that without the property managers having to lift a finger. And they're doing all of their work. So workflows for repairs and maintenance, new managements, inspections, new tenancy, vacating tenancy, right through to scheduling all those inspections using Ailo Inspect.
So, and the electronic signature platforms is all integrated as well?
Yeah,
So
we're using DocuSign at the moment for our forms with REI, and our paperless inspections are going to be released, I think, in the next 2 weeks.
Fantastic. So can I ask you about the $1 million question? I'm sure anyone listening wants to know, and you're looking really worried there, Juliette.
No.
I'm going to ask you about the fees. How much does it cost? Because I've been working with a lot of coaching clients lately, and every one of them are not complaining, justifiably so, saying how expensive all the subscriptions are, and it just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. So what do the fees look like for you guys?
That's a really good question. So when I did all that work around cost benefit analysis and I figured out what people are paying operating through a trust account, I had to sit down and figure out, yes, there's deferred bank fees just day to day, then there's deferred bank fees for outbound B-pays, and then there's if they're paying for inbound B-pays, because agents have to absorb that cost. There's no way to get a tenant to pay that. And then I looked at what does it cost for someone to sit down and do the receipting and the bank rec and the mid-month and the end of month. And we figured out all of that. And then we factor in what it costs for Ailo, and they're still saving $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, depending on the size of the rent roll. So, I mean, the cost to actually put Ailo into a business is per property per month. So it's not in bands of 50 to 100, 100, 150. We don't want to do that. We want to motivate people to grow and support them in that process. So they're only paying for the properties that are in Ailo, and it's $3.50 per property per month plus GST, and there's a $1,500 onboarding fee. Even if you do all the numbers, they still save an obscene amount of money. That's why this question always is quite funny to me, because they still save a ridiculous amount of money.
I would love to see some of the breakdown in those figures, because I am not a numbers person, and my head would have been exploding if I was doing your job. So yeah, I'd love to see that, what the actual, comparisons are to how I'm running my business now to the savings there. So maybe you and I could have a conversation, or one of your team can have a conversation with me off camera about that, because it is a very, it is getting harder and harder. People are discounting fees. It's getting harder and harder to grow your businesses. There's so much competition out there. Everybody's, utilizing pretty much all the same software and technology. And so I think we are entering into a stage of a cycle of real estate where costs are going to matter again. We've had a bit of utopia with the post-COVID, and especially if you've got a sales business as well. But I think that's going to shift. And I think, you should always be across your numbers anyway, but now I think is going to be very important. So thank you so much for sharing all that information with me, with all of us. I want to ask you though, I'm a big fan of personal development, and I wonder if you've got a personal development tool, book, resource, podcast, a habit that you do that would help our listeners in property management world.
Yes. So many years ago, I saw a presenter at a conference, Chris Hedler, and he has this concept of a useful belief. So our mindset legitimately dictates the outcome of everything that we do. How you approach it and your perspective will dictate, I really believe, the outcome. Just like if you're on the phone to someone and you start smiling, they can feel it. It changes the trajectory of everything we do. So Chris has this belief tool around having a useful belief. It doesn't matter what the topic is. Is it useful to think, oh my God, I've got this crazy day and it's going to be exhausting? Or can you spin that to, how lucky am I that I am this busy and people want to work with me? Like, spin it and make it a useful belief. It'll change the way you do your work and how people perceive you, which is so much It's so important in what we do when we're client facing.
That is such valuable advice, especially for property managers, because sometimes you can walk, the minute you walk into the office, you can instantly feel overwhelmed with all the things to get through in the day. And I actually have recently caught myself saying that the last couple of weeks when people have asked me, how are you? And I've gone, oh my God, I'm so busy. And then I've caught myself and gone, but I'm really grateful for it. So I think that's a really a very valuable tool there that you've shared with us. So thank you so much for that. How can anyone find out more about Ailo or book in a demo with you guys? What's the quickest way?
Yeah, I would jump onto the Ailo website and request a demo. You can do it online, and Justin from our team will reach out to you and organise that.
Fantastic. Definitely have a look, guys. I have already had a demo and I love the product. It is amazing. Some great features there. I'll just quickly recap on some of them. We discussed, reducing rent arrears potentially down to 1%, improving your communication. It's got the built-in workflows, so you don't even have to worry about building your own workflows, especially if you're not a process or procedures-driven person. It's all there. And what was the final thing was the trust accounting, the landlords paying their own invoices. So that, and I'm sure there's other features as well, but for me, they are the 4 things that stood out that I would find valuable in my business. So thank you so much, Juliette. I'm really grateful that you gave up some of your time and shared your insights with us.
Thanks for having me.
Property inspections, entries, exits, incomings, outgoings, routine inspections, whatever you call them, you have to do them. And I remember when I first started as a property manager, you had to handwrite the reports and take notes on a digital camera, then upload the photo memory card to your computer and hope and pray that they weren't all blurry or your computer had enough memory to store them. But gone are those days, thanks to Inspection Express. Now, Inspection Express is not only the #1 tool used by leading property managers across Australia and New Zealand, but the leader in groundbreaking new tech in the industry with the launch of 360-degree virtual tours. Now, virtual tours is upping the ante, giving landlords, owners and directors unparalleled 360-degree virtual access to their properties. So head to the link in the show notes to book in your free demo with Inspection Express. If you love the Property Management Podcast, you've got to check out the PM Collective, hosted by my friend, Ashley Goodchild. She discusses things like how to have awkward conversations about pay rises, yes please, how to raise the bar in property management, and why so many people just seem to fall into the industry. You've got to love stories like that. She'll leave you with great advice, actionable steps to take, and let you know that you're not alone in any of the challenges that you face. So be sure to check out the PM Collective wherever you get your podcasts. Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.